Join ForumIAS Academy, trusted by hundreds of toppers, including IAS Rank 1 Shruti Sharma.
Good evening, aspirants. Welcome to the Hindu News Analysis discussion brought to you by ForumIAS for the date 27th April 2023. These are the list of news articles for today's discussion. We will be covering 5 topics from environment, science and technology, international relations, and a topic from internal security. So with this, straight away, let us move to our first topic. First topic, virtual digital assets, India's stand and the way ahead. This opinion section is about virtual digital assets. So before getting into the article, let us have an idea about virtual digital assets first. See, the Financial Action Task Force has given a definition to virtual assets. According to that, virtual digital assets are digital representation of value that can be digitally traded, transferred and used for payment and investment purposes. This definition is included in the FATF's global recommendations on combating money laundering and the financing of terrorism and proliferation. In line with that, India has also taken steps to regulate the virtual digital assets. Recently, the Finance Ministry has brought virtual digital assets business and service providers under the provisions of Anti-Money Laundering Act. To be precise, if somebody does any fraudulent activities using the virtual digital assets like involving in money laundering or terror financing, then they will be booked under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act of 2002. In a recent notification issued by the Finance Ministry, certain activities associated with virtual digital assets were included in the PMLA Act of 2002. They are like exchange between virtual digital assets and fiat currencies, exchange between one or more forms of virtual digital assets, then transfer of virtual digital assets, all comes under the ambit of PMLA now. So now the government has ensured that virtual digital assets do not lead to usage in any money laundering or terror financing activities. In addition to it, virtual digital assets platforms carrying out activities that I had just listed now are mandated to register with the Financial Intelligence Unit India. These virtual digital asset platforms will register themselves as a reporting entity with the Financial Intelligence Unit India. See, FIU, that is the Financial Intelligence Unit, is a central agency that was set up by the Government of India in the year 2004. As the Central National Agency, they are responsible for receiving, processing, analyzing and disseminating information that are related to suspected financial transactions. So what they do is that they receive financial information that are related to countries' anti-money laundering laws, and then they analyze and process such information and disseminate the information to appropriate national and international authorities. This is how FIU supports anti-money laundering and combats terror financing. In that line, the FIU obtains reports from banks and other financial institutions and sends these reports to investigative and enforcement agencies that are mandated under the law to combat economic crimes. So from now on, along with the banks and financial institutions, even the virtual digital asset platforms should record and monitor all financial transactions. And then these virtual digital assets platform should have to report it to the Financial Intelligence Unit when any suspected activity is detected. The author applauds this step from the government as it will equip the government to fight against money laundering and terror financing. And he adds to say that standardization of such norms will go a long way in making the Indian virtual digital asset sector more transparent. And we have to know that such risk mitigation measures are in line with the global guidelines put forward by the International Monetary Fund and Financial Action Task Force. But apart from this, the Finance Act of 2022 also introduced a new taxation regime bringing the virtual digital assets into its fold. This is to arise income from transfer of virtual digital assets under the Income Tax Act of 1961. Here, according to the Finance Act of 2022, the gains arising from the transfer of virtual digital assets are proposed to be taxed at a rate of 30%. Then the term virtual digital assets has also been defined under the Income Tax Act. This includes information, code, or numbers or tokens generated through cryptographic means. Then the VDA also includes non-fungible tokens or any other tokens of similar nature. And thirdly, it may be any other digital assets as the government may specify by the notification. This is where the author is citing the Red Flag Act that was enacted during the second half of 19th century in UK. You can see from the picture here, as per this Red Flag Act enacted in UK, every motor car should have 3 drivers. One at the wheel who will be driving it, the second a fellow passenger will be there, and a third person who will be a person on foot who will be holding a red flag to alert the horse-drawn carriages coming in the opposite direction. Such a move from the government was made taking the safety of the people into concern. So because of this, the motor car cannot travel with high speed, and moreover, the act has mandated that motor vehicle can travel at a maximum speed of 4 miles per hour in the rural and 2 miles per hour in the city sites, as a downfall in the UK's motor vehicle market. And later on, UK government repealed this act, paving the way for British motor car industries and icons such as Rolls-Royce. The author is telling this here by referring to the VDA regulation in India. Although he appreciates the move to bring the virtual digital asset regulation under the PMLA ambit, he suggests that the government should reconsider its tax treatment on virtual digital assets. According to him, reducing the tax rate on VDA will help in increasing the capital flight, consumers, investments and talent. And he tells such a reduction in tax rate will also dent the grey economy for virtual digital assets. Finally, he suggests the government to consider the steps taken by other G20 nations. For example, in Asia, Japan and South Korea and all, the government has established a framework to license virtual digital asset service providers. Similar case in Europe, European Parliament has also passed the Markets in Crypto Assets regulation. So as a conclusion, we can say the technology surrounding the financial sector has been evolving rapidly. While these technologies have several benefits, their misuse poses a big threat. So a coordinated effort at the global level is necessary for this purpose. In addition to the domestic efforts, the government of India should take a lead in guiding the discourse on the global regulation of virtual digital assets. Second topic, SC modifies orders on ESZ around protected forests. Last year, there was a judgment from the Supreme Court which directed that every protected forest, national park and wildlife sanctuary across the country should have a mandatory eco-sensitive zone. This should be a minimum of 1 kilometer starting from their demarcated boundaries of the protected areas. But now the Supreme Court has recently modified its judgment, where the Supreme Court has taken a view that eco-sensitive zones cannot be uniform across the country and it has to be protected area specific. So the mandatory 1 kilometer area of ESZ from the boundaries of protected areas will not be applicable now. This is the news here. So from this article, let us know more about the issues surrounding eco-sensitive zone from exam point of view. See, the creation of eco-sensitive zones has led to rising of protests in Kerala and some other regions as well. It was feared that it may spread to other parts of the country as well. That is why the Kerala government approached the Supreme Court to modify its earlier judgment. Let us in short know about the protected areas and reserved forests for a better understanding. Let's take the protected areas first. See, in simple terms, protected areas are regions of land or sea which are given certain levels of protection for conserving biodiversity and socio-environmental values. In these areas, human interventions and exploitation of resources are very much limited. This is why notifying any area as protected areas invites criticism from rights-based activists. Okay, now know that currently protected areas cover 5.26% of India's land area with around 108 national parks and 564 wildlife sanctuaries. Most important from prelims perspective, know that protected areas are notified under the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Now let us know about the Forest Rights Act. See, the FRA was enacted in the year 2006. The rights of forest dwelling tribal communities and other traditional forest dwellers, like recognizing their rights on forest resources, other socio-cultural needs for the tribal communities. Additionally, it recognizes and vests the rights and occupation in forest land in forest dwelling scheduled tribes as well as on traditional forest dwellers who have been residing in such forests for generations. In brief, it strengthens the conservation regime of the forest while ensuring the livelihood and food security of these ST and other forest dwellers community. From prelims angle, know that the Gram Sabha is the authority that decides the nature and extent of individual forest rights or community forest rights or both of them. Hence, Gram Sabha has the final call in deciding the rights of forest dwelling scheduled tribes as well as traditional forest dwellers in the reserved forest areas. These Gram Sabhas that we are discussing now are given statutory status which are empowered to manage forest, wildlife and biodiversity that are lying within the traditional village boundaries. And these areas under Gram Sabha are called as community forest resources. This is enough from exam point of view. Now moving to the eco-sensitive zone. See, ESZ is an area which is notified by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. They are situated around protected areas, national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. Know that notifications declaring any area as eco-sensitive zones are issued under the Environment Protection Act of 1986. The main aim behind the eco-sensitive zones is to regulate certain activities happening around the area. And so creating eco-sensitive zones across the protected areas will minimize the negative impact of such activities on the fragile ecosystem. Know that activities in and around the eco-sensitive zones are not completely restricted. Some activities like ongoing agriculture, horticulture practices, rainwater harvesting, organic farming, adoption of green technology and use of renewable energy sources are allowed. Know that the government has notified nearly 341 ESEZs in 29 states and union territories, while another 85 ESEZs are awaiting notification. Another statistics is that protected areas and eco-sensitive zones together cover around 8.66% of India's land area. If eco-sensitive zones are such a good measure to conserve the fragile ecosystem and green cover in India, why declaring an area as eco-sensitive zone is leading to protest and other problems? This is because in certain states, parts of ESEZs fall within the scheduled areas that are notified under the 5th schedule of Indian Constitution. Such scheduled areas cover over 11% of country's land area and are thickly forested and mountainous. These scheduled areas are populated by the scheduled tribe groups and are notified by the President under Article 244 where the PESA Act applies. The PESA, which is the provision of the Panchayat Extension to Scheduled Areas Act, recognizes habitation level Gram Sabhas. These Gram Sabhas are empowered to safeguard and preserve community resources on forest and revenue lands in the scheduled areas. In that case, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has not amended the Environment Protection Act. So, any declaration of ESEZ in and around the scheduled areas and reserved forest is said to dilute the powers and functions of Gram Sabha that is provided by the other acts like PESA and Forest Rights Act. So, the self and local autonomy of the tribals are not ensured here. This is because in case of ESEZ, a committee led by Chief Wildlife Warden would exercise power. Here, the Chief Wildlife Warden would determine the areas under the ESEZ the nature of activities that would be regulated in the ESEZ. This is the problem here. So in short, we can say the local autonomy of the tribals are not ensured by the eco-sensitive zones that are declared under the Environment Protection Act of 1986. This is the problem and the issue here. But now the Supreme Court has modified its verdict, right? We will see in later discussion how this works from now on. So that is all about this article. Let us close this and move to the third article now. Third topic, the third gen web is about public good. Web 3.0 is the next version of the internet where services will run on blockchain. It is a decentralized internet that runs on a public blockchain, which is also used for cryptocurrency transactions. It will be permissionless and democratic. For instance, Twitter will not be able to censor posts, or Facebook will not be able to maintain a database of billions of users when this Web 3.0 comes into existence. In a Web 3.0 universe, people will control their own data and will be able to move around from social media to email to shopping using a single personalized account. Using this single personalized account, we can create a public record on the blockchain of all that activities that are taking place. Know that all data will be interconnected in a decentralized way, unlike the current generation of internet, which is the Web 2.0, where data is mostly stored in central repositories. The three key features of Web 3.0 are ubiquity, semantic web, artificial intelligence, and 3D graphics. Examples of Web 3.0 we can say as NFT, that is the non-fungible tokens. If you take the evolution of World Wide Web, Tim Berners-Lee is the inventor of the World Wide Web, who intended that the internet would be a collaborative medium and a place where all meet, write and read. But the current situation is entirely opposite, with big technologies acting as a gatekeeper to all those working in the World Wide Web. Here is how the World Wide Web evolved to this point. First is the Web 1. It is regarded as the first generation of World Wide Web, also known as syntactic web or read-only web. Mostly, the Web 1.0 was limited to searching the information and reading what is already there in the internet. There was a very little in the way of user interaction or content contribution. It was pretty disorganized. If we come to the Web 2.0 from the mid 2000s, this phase was characterized by enhanced user experience and made the World Wide Web more interactive, also known as social web or read-write web. It enabled the users to participate in content generation, content creations on social networks, blogs, sharing sites and more. Search engines like Google, social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, driven by user-generated content, disrupted the media, advertising and the retail industries. These Web 2.0 business models relies on user participation to create a fresh content, and the resultant data is sold to third parties for marketing purposes. This is how the Web 2.0 works. When we come to the Web 3.0, which is yet to arrive, it is the next stage of web evolution. It would make the internet more intelligent, process information with near human-like intelligence through the power of AI. But why do we need the Web 3.0? At present, there are certain issues. First is loss of privacy. See, presently, a huge amount of data is generated when consumers search, shop or upload videos and pictures. All this data is stored in the servers of the companies that the people interact with. This means that the intermediaries become custodians of user data and profit from it using advertising. This gives rise to issues of privacy, wherein user data is shared for profit without the user consent. And the second issue is the data ownership. Presently, only centralized repositories are the ones that own user data and profit from it. But in Web 3.0, users themselves can own and be properly compensated for their time and data. Third issue is regarding plagiarism. Plagiarism is a widespread online concept where it is nothing but stealing or copying someone's content in the web. It's very easy to copy original content and build a following around it on the social media platforms. Those who copy content are getting more compensation than the original content creators, and plagiarism makes it harder for creators to get adequately compensated. Web 3.0 might help address this issue. The transparent nature of blockchain makes it easy for anyone to track the originator of content. Now let us see the implications of Web 3.0. First is choice over personal data. In Web 3.0, instead of data residing in the centralized databases of big companies, it is going to reside on the blockchain technology, which is not controlled by any other organization. And with that, a person's data becomes their choice and which advertisers they want to give it to. Second is the impact on big tech companies. Web 3.0 adoption will force the big tech companies to rethink their core business models and become more community owned and driven. So the big tech firms are already experimenting with different aspects of this new technology. Third implication is with respect to the new regulatory environment. The regulation of Web 3.0 requires a new regulatory thinking. Authoritarian governments might seek to capture the new technology while eliminating private competition. For example, China began researching digital money in 2014. It plans to force its exclusive use at the cost of privacy, freedom, and political dissent. While some countries may seek to force Web 3.0 innovations into compliance with familiar legal structures. Now, coming back to the article, let us know how India could make use of Web 3.0. Firstly, the author talks about the NFT, the digital tokens minted by the Web3 platforms. See, India's handicraft industry is renowned for design-related innovations, and many of such design innovations are not protected by intellectual property rights also. So, the author says digital tokens minted by Web 3.0 platforms would enable our handicraft enterprises to secure their innovations. Secondly, he suggests deploying Internet of Things in rural development projects. We should know that there is a rapid rise of community data in rural areas. So using that data and data analytics capabilities, we can play a transformative role in regionally disadvantaged areas. For example, Atal Bhujal Yojana is an important source of data on groundwater utilization practices and aquifer contamination. So using Web 3.0, he says we can map the water use habits of the communities. And before concluding, the author highlights the constraints associated with data analytics. That is, in rural areas, data generation is way more when compared to the ability to analyze the data. So, to address this, we need to incentivize and develop a pool of talented people in data analytics sector from the rural community itself. That is what the article is saying. So, in this article discussion, we saw about the various evolution associated with World Wide Web and the need for Web 3.0, its implication, as well as the benefits to India. So with this, let us close this article here and move to the fourth topic. Fourth topic, 10 Jawans killed in blast by Maoists in the Dantewada. The news reports Maoist attack on 10 security personnel who were returning from a counter-insurgency operation. This incident took place in Dantewada of Chhattisgarh. So from this news article, let us cover about the left-wing extremism and also the measures taken in those regions to reduce violence and death. See, the left-wing extremism, or also known as Naxal insurgency in India, know that it is a violent movement that originated in the year 1967 in the Naxalbari region of West Bengal. That is why the name Naxal is given to this violent movement. This movement was initially motivated by the Communist Party of India, Maoist, and the group of people involved in the violent movement believes in the political theory of Chinese political leader named Mao Zedong. To be precise, the Naxals strongly believe that solution to social and economic discrimination is to overthrow the existing political system. They fight against the entire government machinery as they think that government is fully responsible for the inequality prevailing in the country, and they use all forms of violence against the state with an intention to overthrow the state machinery. Later on, this movement had widespread across eastern India, mainly in less developed areas of states such as Chhattisgarh, Odisha and Andhra Pradesh. You can see from the picture in the slide, the stats associated with the deployment of police forces and regions that are affected by left-wing extremism are shown here. Now, if we take the reasons for it, they are like inequitable distribution of resources, failure of land reforms, especially land distribution after independence. Then the socio-economic inequalities, unemployment, despair about the future, or some of the reasons for rise in left-wing extremism. Then another issue is with respect to the administration, where dishonest and self-serving dominant groups, political corruption, dishonesty of bureaucrats serving there reduces the trust on the government. Government deficit in parts of Red Corridor region, that is the regions affected by left-wing extremism, is main reason for the rise of left-wing extremism. Then the lack of title to public lands cultivated by the landless poor are also one of the reasons for it. Another main reason is the forced displacement, which is caused by mining, irrigation and power projects, because people end up taking violent methods where there is no adequate arrangements for rehabilitation. As a result of forced eviction, livelihoods are lost and people join violent groups to function against the government. Then finally, know that certain laws prohibit the transfer of tribal lands to non-tribal people in the 5th scheduled areas. Poor implementation of such laws deprive the tribes of their rights over their land, and so they end up losing their land because of their poor literacy levels and access to legal mechanism. But however, the government has taken some steps to address these issues. These are like security related expenditure scheme, which is a scheme that is implemented as a sub-scheme of modernization of police forces. Under the security related expenditure scheme, the central government gives security related expenditure of 70 districts affected by left-wing extremisms to the states in order to provide training and operational needs of security forces. Second one is the special infrastructure scheme. This scheme is also implemented as a sub-scheme of modernization of police forces. Under the scheme, funds are provided to states for strengthening the infrastructure related to security. The third scheme is related to civic action program. This scheme is a sub-scheme under the umbrella scheme named modernization of police forces. This scheme aims to bridge the gap between security forces and the local people. This is done through personal interaction, and security forces directly communicate with the local population to build relationship and trust with the local people. This is how participative governance is done in the left-wing extremist affected areas. Then the another point is road connectivity project. This project is for building road infrastructure and left-wing extremism mobile tower projects to install mobile towers in the regions in order to give mobile connectivity to the people living there. So these are few steps that are taken by the government of India to address the issue of left-wing extremism. So that is all about the topic. With this, let us complete the topic here and move to the final topic of the day. Now coming to the fifth and the final topic, angry with reform delays, India calls UN system anachronistic. The news reports that the Indian permanent representative called the UN Charter anachronistic, meaning that UN Charter and UN system are outdated. And India has leveled charges on United Nations saying that UN has failed in handling the COVID-19 pandemic, the Ukraine war, terrorism and climate change. That is the news here. The demand from India is to expand the Security Council's permanent membership. From the speech made by the permanent representative, we can infer the India's frustration at the slow pace of the intergovernmental negotiation process. See, India's External Affairs Minister visited the UN for the 77th session of UNGA last year. The United Nations Security Council reform was the main agenda of our India's External Affairs Minister. In his speech to the UNGA, he said that the need to reform the United Nations Security Council cannot be denied forever. The minister met his counterparts from Germany, Brazil, and Japan under the Group of 4 banner, that is G4 banner. The group is primarily focused on UNSC reforms and permanent membership of the body for G4 countries. There is a near consensus among the United Nations members that UNSC need to be reformed. However, the manner of the reforms remains contentious. So this has stalled the reforms for long. From this discussion, let us know about the structure of UNSC. See, the Security Council has 15 members. In that, 5 are permanent and the other 10 are non-permanent members. The permanent members includes China, France, Russia, UK and the United States. They are collectively known as P5 countries. The 10 non-permanent members are elected for a period of 2 years by the UNGA members. Know that to be elected, member state must receive at least 2/3 of all votes casted in General Assembly. The members are chosen according to the regions. For instance, there will be 3 countries from African group, 2 countries from Latin America and Caribbean, 2 countries from Asia Pacific, 2 countries from Western Europe and others. Then there will be a single country which will be nominated as a representative of Eastern Europe. The 5 permanent members have the power of veto. Under the Article 27 of the UN Charter, Security Council decisions on all substantive matters require 3/5 of the members' sanction. That is, for passing any resolution, we need 9 votes out of 15 members. But however, a negative vote or a veto by a permanent member prevents adoption of a proposal even if it has received the required votes. But abstention is not regarded as a veto in most cases. Know that all 5 permanent members must vote for adopting any amendment of the UN Charter or for giving any recommendations for admission of any new UN member states. And the decision of the UNSC, known as resolutions, are binding on all members. That is very much important. So in order to reduce the accumulated power with this P5 countries and also to make the UN system conforming to the present geopolitical structure, India and other like-minded countries are demanding for reforms in UN system. That is all about the article. In this slide, I have also attached the functions of UNSC. You can have a look at it. With this, let us close the news articles discussion here. Now, coming to the previous year prelims questions, these 2 questions that we are going to discuss now has appeared in the year 2018. So kindly listen. Consider the following statements. First statement, in the first Lok Sabha, the single largest party in the opposition was the Swatantra Party. The second statement says, in the Lok Sabha, a leader of the opposition was recognized for the first time in the year 1969. Third statement says, in the Lok Sabha, if a party does not have a minimum of 75 members, its leaders cannot be recognized as the leader of opposition. Which of these statements given above is or are correct? The options given are option A 1 and 3 only, option B 2 only, option C 2 and 3 only, option D 1, 2 and 3. See, the first statement is wrong because in the first Lok Sabha, the single largest party was the Indian National Congress. So let us remove the first statement. So second statement is correct. Now consider the third statement. It says there has to be a minimum of 75 members in Lok Sabha. Only then its leader can become a leader of opposition. This statement is wrong because the leader of the largest opposition party should have at least 1/10 of the total strength of the house. That is 1/10 seat of total strength of the house, which means, for example, if there is 545 seats in Lok Sabha now, you have to have at least 55 seats. Only then the leader of that party can become a leader of opposition. So minimum of 75 members and all, it is wrong. So the correct answer for this question is option B, 2 only. Now coming to the second question, consider the following statements. First statement, the Parliament of India can place a particular law in the 9th schedule of the Constitution of India. Second statement says, validity of a law placed in the 9th schedule cannot be examined by any court or no judgment can be made on it. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? The options given are option A 1 only, option B 2 only, option C both 1 and 2, option D neither 1 nor 2. See, the 9th schedule was added to the constitution by the first amendment in the year 1951. This was done with a view to provide protection to land reforms. Okay, so the parliament can place a particular law in the 9th schedule is correct. If you take the second statement, this is wrong because the Supreme Court has said that laws placed in the 9th schedule are open to judicial scrutiny. And the Supreme Court also said that laws which are placed in the 9th schedule do not enjoy a blanket protection. So this statement is wrong. The correct answer for this question is option A, one only. Coming to the mains practice question, discuss the role and relevance of United Nations Security Council in the 21st century. Why UNSC needs various reforms. Aspirants can take note of this question. You can write the answers and post it in the comment section for peer review of it. So with this, we have come to the end of news articles and previous year questions discussion. With this, let us wind up our discussion here. If you like the method of teaching and if you can understand the concepts well, please give a like, comment, share and subscribe to ForumIAS in various social media platforms. Thank you for watching.